He came home. After months, no years away. Finally, he was back. I remember the exact moment I saw him step off that bus. His uniform was dusty, his eyes tired, but there was something softer there. A hope, maybe, relief, a chance to start fresh. That's what we told ourselves. That the war was behind us, and now we could build a new life together. For so long, all I wanted was to hold him close and never let go. To watch him breathe easy again. The world felt heavy before, like we were carrying the weight of everything. But that day, it felt like maybe, just maybe, we could put it down. We left the city, packed what little we had, and moved to a quiet little town. A place where nobody knew his name or his story, where we could be just a normal couple with no shadows from the past following us. I thought that would be enough, but the moment we arrived, I felt it, a chill I couldn't explain. Something dark was waiting for us here. Something I couldn't see yet, but it was there, lurking just beneath the surface. We tried to ignore it, to focus on healing and moving forward. But the truth has a way of clawing out from the shadows. And what I discovered about our neighbors, it shattered everything. We settled into a small house on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. It was the kind of place where kids played in the streets and people waved from their porches. The air smelled different here, cleaner, softer. I thought this would be the fresh start we both needed. He wanted it too, but the war didn't leave him behind. Not really. Some nights I'd wake up to him sitting on the edge of the bed, eyes wide and distant. Shadows from his past would drag him back. Sounds of gunfire, screams, the feeling of being trapped. He never talked much about it. Sometimes he just clenched his fists so tight his knuckles turned white. I wanted to help, to make it all go away, but there was only so much I could do. Still, I stayed hopeful. I told myself patience was the key. He'd heal. We'd heal. We could build a life here. The neighbors were kind, at least on the surface. Mrs. Collins brought over a pie the day we moved in. The Petersons waved from their porch, smiling like they wanted us to feel welcome. A few people stopped by just to say hello, offering advice about the town or local shops. I tried to believe they were genuine, but some things felt off. One afternoon while I was planting flowers in the front yard, I caught Mr. Jenkins watching from behind his curtains. Not just watching, staring. When our eyes met, he quickly pulled back and disappeared. Another time, I heard whispers as I passed by a group of neighbors chatting on the street. They stopped talking when I got close, exchanging quick, guarded glances. I told myself I was imagining things. Even the kids who played outside sometimes paused and looked at us like we didn't belong. I kept quiet. I didn't want to scare him. Or me. Still, those tiny moments built up inside me, like small cracks in the walls we were trying so hard to keep standing. Something was wrong, but I didn't know what yet. At first, the strange things were small. I'd find a jar of spices moved from where I'd left it, or a sock missing from the laundry pile. Nothing huge, just little things that made me pause. I'd ask him if he'd moved them, but he never had. Then came the noises. At night, I'd hear footsteps outside the house, slow, careful, almost like someone was pacing. Sometimes faint whispers carried through the walls. I'd wake him up, but he'd just sigh and say it was probably the wind or the old pipes settling. But it wasn't just the house. Neighbors seemed to be watching us more closely than before. When I stepped outside, I'd catch them glancing my way. Sometimes I'd pass a group talking and their voices would drop to silence when I came near. One day, I heard my name whispered, soft, urgent, almost like a warning. I wanted to believe it was all in my head. His PTSD didn't help. He was already questioning what was real. He'd sit staring out the window for hours, his face tight with fear. Sometimes he'd flinch at shadows or flinch at the sound of a car door closing. He kept telling me the war was still here in his mind and that sometimes he couldn't tell where it ended and this new life began. I tried to keep peace. I didn't want to add to his stress, so I brushed off the odd things, told myself we just needed time, that the neighbors probably meant no harm. But inside I was breaking apart. I started watching the neighbors too. When I walked down the street, I noticed groups of them huddled together, whispering quickly and then stopping when I got close. Their eyes flicked to me, cold and hard, like they were hiding something or waiting. I wanted to confront them. I wanted answers, but every time I opened my mouth, doubt held me back. What if I was wrong? What if I made everything worse? The isolation settled in. Even my husband, who once leaned on me for support, was pulling away. His nightmares worsened. He stopped talking about the war, stopped sharing the little progress we'd made. I saw the man I loved slipping further away. I felt alone, trapped between protecting him and facing the truth outside our door. And then came the night when something broke. I woke to a sound downstairs, a crash, followed by footsteps running away. We checked the house together. Nothing was stolen, but our front window had been smashed. The neighbors, no one heard a thing. That night, as I held him close, I realized we weren't just fighting his past anymore. We were fighting something here, something close and dark. But what? And why us? The night the window broke was a turning point for me. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to know what was going on. Who was watching us? Why were they doing this? The next morning, I found myself standing in front of Mr. Jenkins' house. He was the one who always watched from behind the curtains. I took a deep breath and knocked on his door. When he opened, I saw the surprise flash in his eyes. Maybe he wasn't used to visitors, or maybe he wasn't used to me. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He hesitated, then stepped outside. "What is it?" I told him about the broken window, the strange noises, the whispers. I looked him in the eye. "Do you know anything about it? Have you seen or heard anything?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I don't know what you want me to say. This neighborhood is quiet, people mind their own business." His words felt like a wall, cold and solid, but the way he avoided my eyes said more. I pressed on, hoping to catch something. "I just want to understand. We're new here. We want peace." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Peace? You don't know what you're asking for." I didn't know what he meant, but I felt it deep inside. There was something more, something he wasn't telling me. After that day, I started watching more closely. Then I found it. A folded piece of paper slipped under our front door, almost hidden behind a flower pot. I hesitated before picking it up. The handwriting was neat, familiar in a strange way. It said only a few words. "We know what he did. Watch your back." My heart pounded. Who was we? And what did they know? I wanted to tear the paper up and forget it. But I couldn't. I showed it to him that night. He looked at it for a long time, eyes darkening. Then he folded it slowly and slipped it into his pocket without a word. After that, he became even more distant. His silences stretched longer. Sometimes I caught him staring at his hands, like he was remembering things he didn't want to say out loud. I felt the walls closing in. I knew I couldn't wait for answers to come to me. I had to find them myself, even if it meant risking everything, including us. I couldn't shake the note from my mind. "We know what he did." Those words haunted me, twisting around my heart like a storm. Who were these neighbors really? What had my husband done to make them turn against us like this? One evening, I decided to take a risk. I stayed outside late, pretending to water the plants, watching the neighbors' houses. I noticed that at least 3 of them, Mr. Jenkins, Mrs. Collins, and the Petersons, would gather quietly in the shadows near the park across the street. Whispering, always whispering. Curiosity pulled me closer until I was just out of sight. Then I overheard words that froze me. "Can't let him forget. Not after what happened. They don't deserve to know the truth. After everything, he should be punished." My stomach dropped. What truth? What punishment? The next day, I confronted Mrs. Collins. She looked at me like I was a stranger, her smile forced. "Why are you watching us?" she asked coldly. I swallowed and pressed on. "Why are you all talking about my husband? What did he do?" Her eyes darkened, and for the first time she didn't hide her bitterness. "He was part of the unit in the war. The one responsible for that incident." I shook my head. "What incident?" She spat the words like poison. "The raid. The one that tore this town apart years ago." My mind reeled. I'd never heard of this before. My husband had always been quiet about the war. Only bits and pieces. Mrs. Collins continued, her voice trembling. "There were civilians, innocent people caught in the crossfire. Some say your husband's unit was reckless, careless, some say they crossed lines no soldier should. I wanted to scream, to deny it. But deep down, I knew he was carrying a weight too heavy to share. Others in the neighborhood were just as torn. Some avoided us, fear in their eyes. Others whispered behind closed doors, resentment dripping from their voices. It wasn't just a secret about my husband, it was a wound that ran through the whole community. A shadow from the past that still poisoned their lives. I felt betrayed. Not just by the neighbors, but by the man I thought I knew. How much had he hidden from me? How much had I missed? That night, I sat by the window watching the quiet street. I felt trapped, caught between a husband haunted by his past and a town that wouldn't forgive. I wondered if we should leave. Run away from the judgment, the whispers, the pain. But then I looked at him, sleeping fitfully beside me, his face pale and tired. He wasn't just a soldier or a secret. He was my husband. The man who needed me now more than ever. I didn't know what the future held. But I knew one thing. We couldn't run from the past. Not anymore. We had to face it, together. One night, after weeks of silence and distance, he finally spoke. It was late. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. He looked at me with tired eyes, the weight of years pressing down on his shoulders. I never wanted you to know, he said, voice barely above a whisper. But I can't keep it inside anymore. He told me about the raid, the mission his unit was sent on. It was supposed to be quick, precise. But things went wrong. Civilians caught in the crossfire. Mistakes, decisions made in panic. Lives lost. I didn't kill anyone, he said, shaking his head. But I was there. I saw what happened, and I couldn't stop it. His voice cracked, and I saw the man I loved break in front of me. The soldier haunted by memories he carried alone. We talked for hours. And for the first time, I understood the depth of his pain. The next day we made a choice. We wouldn't hide anymore. We had to face the neighbors, the whispers, the fear. So we went to the park where the neighbors often gathered. I held his hand tightly as we walked up. The moment we arrived, a hush fell over the group. Mr. Jenkins stepped forward, eyes hard but not without pain. We wanted you to leave, he said. But maybe it's time to stop hiding. Then, unexpectedly, Mrs. Parker, a woman who had barely spoken to us before, stepped out from the crowd. Her eyes were kind, and her voice steady. I've known him a long time, she said, looking at my husband. And I know the truth isn't simple. We've all made mistakes on both sides. She told the group she believed in forgiveness, in healing, that the past was painful. Yes, but it didn't have to define us forever. Some neighbors nodded. Others turned away, their faces tight with anger or fear. That moment changed everything. The town's true colors showed, some ready to forgive, others still trapped in bitterness. We didn't expect everyone to accept us. But having even one ally made the impossible feel a little less so. We started to rebuild, not just our lives, but something fragile between us and the community. It wouldn't be easy. The past wouldn't disappear overnight. But together we found a way forward. One step at a time. After that day in the park, things didn't instantly get better. Healing never works that way. But something shifted. Something we both desperately needed. We found strength in each other. The walls of silence my husband had built began to crumble, brick by brick, replaced by quiet talks and shared memories. We started to remember who we were beyond the war, beyond the fear. Slowly a few neighbors reached out. Mrs. Parker became a steady presence, a friend who checked in, listened without judgment. Others joined too, people tired of the bitterness, ready to move past the past. Together we formed a small circle of trust in the middle of the weary town. Rebuilding trust wasn't easy. Some neighbors stayed distant, cold, even others left the neighborhood entirely, unwilling to face the truths that had come to light. But those who remained made an effort. Little by little, waves of kindness replaced whispers of suspicion. One afternoon, I saw Mr. Jenkins helping my husband fix the fence. Their conversation was quiet, but the tension between them had eased. It was a small thing, but it meant the world to me. The scars of the past were still there, visible if you looked closely. But they no longer controlled us. Our house, once a place of fear and secrets, slowly became a home again. Laughter started to fill the rooms. We planted new flowers in the garden, watched the seasons change through open windows. I learned that home isn't just a place. It's the people we hold close, the trust we build, the courage to face pain together, the resilience to stand up again, even when the world feels like it's against us. I won't lie. Some nights are still hard. The nightmares haven't completely left him. And sometimes the past knocks at our door like an unwelcome guest. But we face it now. Together, we are no longer running from shadows. We are making light. Our fresh start isn't perfect. It's messy, slow, and sometimes painful. But it's ours. And that makes all the difference. Because sometimes the strongest beginnings come from the deepest breaks. We survived. We found hope. And maybe that's enough. Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video to help others understand the hidden struggles many veterans and families face every day. Remember, the toughest battles aren't always fought on distant battlefields. They often happen quietly, at home. By supporting each other, we can help bring healing and hope to those who need it most. Your kindness and awareness make a difference. Stay strong and thank you for being part of this journey with us.